Good evening, I'm Jared Bowen in for Emily Rooney. Tonight it's one of our own favorite festive traditions here at Greater Boston, our annual Holiday Books and Movies show. We begin with film, and we have a panel of esteemed and very opinionated critics here to guide us through the movie hits, misses, and Oscar contenders filling theaters over the holidays. Joining us, Ty Burr of the Boston Globe, Monica Castillo of the Boston Online Critics Association, and Joyce Kulhawick of joyceschoices.com. Welcome to you all.
Thank you.
They're gnashing their teeth, but before we hear from our panel, here's a quick cinematic romp through the new releases. The holiday season is generally filled with travel, hopefully not this kind.
You're walking to Nebraska.
That's right. To get my $1 million.
Bruce Dern makes a triumphant return in the excellent Nebraska, where he journeys to his roots.
Be somebody.
Judi Dench does much the same as Philomena, trying to find the child she was forced to give up for adoption.
My guess is that Anthony was adopted and sent to America.
I think I would like to go.
When I go back Baltimore, need no carpet on my floor.
The Coen brothers give us a week-long odyssey as we go inside Llewyn Davis. He's a faltering folk singer in 1961 Greenwich Village.
And in my heart.
And Bilbo Baggins continues to trudge along in the second installment of the Hobbit trilogy.
Come now, don't be shy.
I'm going to do the thing that God put Ron Burgundy on this earth to do. Have salon-quality hair and read the news.
Will Ferrell's Ron Burgundy returns too.
We haven't seen you in a while, America. You haven't changed a bit.
He's now a superstar cable news anchorman. The comedy continues, albeit darkly, in the locally shot American Hustle, where Bradley Cooper's FBI agent is permed and power-hungry.
I got people working for me. My ideas. I'm running the show. I'm the quarterback. This is the greatest company in the world!
Martin Scorsese's The Wolf of Wall Street is a howling look at corruption. It's based on truth, and so is Saving Mr. Banks, which details Disney's battles with the cranky creator of Mary Poppins.
It smells like jasmine, chlorine, and sweat.
There comes a time when there remains two choices. Submit. Or fight!
Idris Elba stars as Nelson Mandela in the poignantly timed Long Walk to Freedom. And in Her, Joaquin Phoenix finds virtual love with an operating system who sounds a lot like Scarlett Johansson.
I want to learn everything about everything.
I love the way you look at the world.
And that should do you for a holiday film feast. All right, there you have it. So I have to say, of all the group that we just saw, and you guys have seen more than I have. There are a couple that I missed, but American Hustle is the standout to me. What I think it really could be the number. I already see dissension among the ranks. But Joyce, I'll start with you. It sounds like you liked it as well.
This film was really on the top of my head. I just saw this, and I thought it was fantastic. David O. Russell directs, Bradley Cooper, Amy Adams, Jennifer Lawrence, Christian Bale, Jeremy Renner in this kind of these cons hired by the FBI to basically fake out and trap the mafia and crooked politicians.
And for me, what worked is that it was so tight. I mean, first of all, you have this amazing cast, including, I won't give away who it is, but sort of this great cameo appearance by a Hollywood legend, and it reminds you of why he is so fantastic. But you have this great cast, well written, well directed. It all came together so well.
It's like a con within a con within a con. The opening scene is Christian Bale standing there working on his comb over, and to me that's a metaphor for the entire film. The whole thing is a big fake out. Yeah, it's a big fake out in how it's applied.
Monica, you were shaking your head. You don't necessarily agree.
I saw American Hustle within a week of seeing Wolf of Wall Street, and I kind of think that American Hustle is the Kmart version of Wolf of Wall Street. I would much highly recommend going to see Wolf of Wall Street instead.
Now, that's one of the ones that I haven't had a chance to see yet, and its release was sort of pushed off. So tell us, it's Martin Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio teaming up once again.
Yep.
And what is it about?
So Leo DiCaprio plays Jordan Belfort, who is this financier with greed and, the Gordon Gekko sort of ethics of greed is good and going out and conquering the world with such, but it's to such levels of depravity that, of course, it spirals out of control. So I think the shorthand for it would be Goodfellas on Wall Street.
Fantastic. Now, Ty, what's your #1 pick for the season right now?
Right now, it's actually Her, the movie with Joaquin Phoenix as a man about 20 years into the future who falls in love with his operating system, and his operating system falls back in love with him. And it sounds like it could be a horror movie or a farce or just an idea that doesn't work, but it's actually an incredibly touching movie about the way we are actually living now and are headed to in the near future, about the way that we intertwine technology so much in our lives that we don't know how to talk to each other as people, where that might take us, how it leaves us, brings us together and leaves us alone. It's got a terrific performance by Joaquin Phoenix, but it also has a really good performance by Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, there's been a lot of conversation about the fact that she should be nominated. People are saying she should be nominated for an Academy Award, despite the fact that you never see her, you only hear her.
If the cast of The Artist can win Oscars for being seen but not being heard, she can win an Oscar for being heard but not being seen.
Good point. Her entire performance is in her voice. And the film is very moving, as you say, and it pulls you in right from the beginning because it really talks about the way we're seduced, quite literally and figuratively, by technology, but raises some interesting questions about the illusions of intimacy we have with people that we have never met around the globe, and multitasking and simultaneity of relationships, and what price we put on intimacy, and why not have a flesh and blood relationship anyway? Too messy. This is neither.
Yes, and it's actually, I think, a movie that is really good to see with somebody who's in their teens or 20s, because they're the age that they're going to be the Joaquin Phoenix character's age in about 20 years.
Absolutely.
This is really about that generation.
Absolutely.
I think it's also interesting that you see the changes in norms where it's becoming more acceptable to have technology glued to your hand at all times, and then now to have a relationship with it. Well, that would have been, preposterous 20 years ago, but here we are. We kind of are addicted to our iPhones, and
it's oddly believable what happens in the movie. You can see it happen.
It's crazy, and I thought, oh, come on, and I bought the whole thing.
Well, speaking of blood relationships, I was struck by these two companion pieces, not intentionally so, of course, but Nebraska, where you have this father-son road trip and relationship, and it's all about going home and what this notion of going home does to you, how it brings it out who you truly are when you're back with the people you grew up with and you're back with your family. And then at the same time, you're looking at Philomena, also a road trip of sorts, where Philomena, played by Judi Dench, is going back to try to figure out what happened to the son that she was forced to give up for adoption, based on a true story. She was, one of these in this horrible situation, growing up in Ireland and being forced into a convent and into forced labor in the laundries we've heard so much about. I mean, how did these two pieces? I thought both of them were fantastic in their own very distinct ways.
I think that they had one major difference, and that is that Nebraska was really a good film all the way through. I thought it was poignant and funny, and it was sort of like a little bit like the Coen brothers in a way. It was a little bit like, but Philomena was not a good film, but it featured a wonderful performance by Judi Dench.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think Nebraska is a darker film. It's an edgier film. It's a more acerbic film, and ultimately incredibly moving. And I think Philomena is it's a slightly more mainstream tale. But I also think on its own terms, it resists being gooey and sentimental at every turn. It's very smart. And I will say that you have a terrific performance by Judi Dench playing a average person instead of a queen. And in Nebraska, you have a terrific performance by Bruce Dern. But I want to say a word about the supporting performances in both those films, by Will Forte as Bruce Dern's son in Nebraska, and Steve Coogan as the reporter who helps Judi Dench, Philomena, find her child. They're both playing against what we're used to thinking of those two actors as, and they're both really smart, touching performances.
Yeah, I would say Nebraska is not any. Philomena is not anywhere near as sophisticated a film as Nebraska.
Was that such a bad
a lot
thing?
of it is just sort of cut and paste together. But Nebraska is so many things. It's so complex in a way, and it is funny and it is dark. So I'm going to say, that film for me is just miles above.
For some reason, I think Alexander Payne is almost looking down on his characters for this one, whereas in The Descendants, his last film, there is a lot more empathy towards his characters and the situation that they're in, even though they're equally terrible with each other, and it's a very difficult family relationship at the heart of the movie. I didn't like Nebraska that much because I really thought that he disliked his characters, so why should I be interested in their story?
I didn't feel like he disliked his characters at all. I felt he had
the way that the way that he portrayed them, he kind of looked down his nose at them.
He's always, I mean, if the Descendants is probably his most sentimental movie. If you look at About Schmidt or Election or even Sideways, he has a very sort of jaded view of humanity, which actually can be quite embracing, once you get past the cynicism.
I don't see it as jaded at all. I think he's all about finding roots and value and what is legacy and what we pass on, what we want to be remembered for. And I think he just sort of, it was a little bit funnier. I mean, I'm saying it was sort of like Coen Brothers, Alexander Payne by way of Coen Brothers and Jim Jarmusch.
Right.
Paradise, Stranger Than Paradise, if you've ever seen that film.
Speaking of Coen Brothers, of course, they make a return as well with Inside Llewyn Davis, which could be kind of cynical. I mean, it's this very, I think,
it's bleak.
Bleak,
it's
jaded
dark.
Look. Even in the color, everything are these muted grays. The color is drained out of it. And Oscar Isaac plays Llewyn Davis, as you see here. He's a folk singer in 1961 who, at one point, one of the characters tells him, it's a great line, that he's the dysfunctional brother of King Midas because everything he touches turns to, I can't complete the sentence because it's an expletive, but he's just down and out and can't get it together. What did you guys think of this?
He leaves a string of wounded relationships and stray cats behind him. There it is. I thought it was fine. I think it's overpraised. I love the structure of that film, but to me it's like a reworking of what we've seen before. You've got this reference to an odyssey of sorts, like Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And only this time it's updated. It's in the 1960s. It's about a folk musician. The cat's name is Ulysses. I mean, we get it. We've seen this. But the structure of this is clever. The music is just okay. And he's
even though you have Justin
Timberlake. Get the soundtrack album. Joyce, get the soundtrack album and get some Dave Van Ronk albums. Okay?
I don't even like folk, and I like the music in this.
I actually feel like I admire this movie more than I love it, and I do think they are repeating themselves in that they take a kind of jerky character and dump the woes of the universe on his head, sort of like Barton Fink, sort of like A Serious Man, which I think is the much better movie. But I really do like Inside Llewyn Davis. I love the music. I think as a work of craft, it's impeccable. It's so beautifully shot. It takes you into that time period, into its music, into the aesthetic of what it was to want to play this kind of music and want to, revere the folk while really not actually liking actual people. That's Llewyn Davis's biggest problem, is that he loves the folk, whoever they may be, but he really doesn't like people that much.
All right, now looking at some of the big films that are coming back, Anchorman 2. We'll talk about The Hobbit in just a second, but Anchorman 2, long-awaited film. And it's so funny, people don't remember when the first film came out. It did well, but it didn't do that well. And so this is sort of the fandom that has made it possible to have a second film.
Cult momentum.
Ty and I sat next to each other at the screening the other night, and I wasn't expecting this, but I laughed almost all the way through it. So here you have Will Ferrell as Ron Burgundy, as you see here, back. He's down and out, but gets back on top by becoming the anchor of a cable news station in the 70s, sort of forecasting everything that's to come in news. By the way, we just saw Steve Carell, who I think walks away with this film under his arm, just scoots away.
As he did with the first.
Yeah.
There's actually a shot of Steve Carell in this movie holding up a head of lettuce and yelling, "Gin!" that will live with me for the rest of my life. It makes no sense whatsoever, but it's just hilarious.
And I worked in news for, 30 years, and it's all true.
We don't want to talk about who you worked with, Joyce. Monica, did you like it?
Kidding.
I did like it, but it is a lot of rehashing of what we saw the first time. Yeah, it's hitting a lot of the same beats. So if you like the first one, you'll like the second one. If you really didn't like the first one, then you're really going to dislike the second one. I didn't find there was enough originality in this second one, which is what appealed to me so much in the first, because everything just became a catchphrase, and here you're going off a checklist of different things that we've seen before.
It's not as good. How could it be as good as the first one? But I will say, if you do want to see this movie, see it with a crowd. It really is a crowd movie.
It does make a difference.
It's a crowd favorite.
Now, finally, the big Hobbit movie, something I also missed, but I did see the reviews, and it seems to people, it's this rare exception where people seem to think it's better than the first. Is the series getting better?
How could it not be?
Hey, we finally see the dragon.
Yes, it's true.
That's the highlight.
That first movie, I'm sorry, that was 3 hours of midgets wandering around in a field, just like bumping into things.
Back.
I know. The second one is an improvement in that they actually seem to be going someplace, and they actually seem to be getting someplace.
Yeah.
It's if you are into Tolkien and if you really, love those books, you'll like the movie, I think. If you have never really bought into that universe, it's not like The Lord of the Rings. You can skip, these 3 films.
Right, very quickly, Joyce, Monica, thumbs up, thumbs down?
On The Hobbit?
Yeah.
Haven't seen it. Should I race out and see it?
I'll go with you.
No, maybe not race out, but I think it is it's certainly an improvement on the first one. And Smaug, who's the dragon that we finally get to see, his scenes are amazing, and the animation behind him is great. It was really awe-inspiring to see that on the big screen, because he's also diving into big mounds of gold coins, and everything is moving all at once, and it is actually very enchanting.
All right, well, thank you all for joining us. I think this has been an exceptionally good season for films. So lots to see over the holiday break for people who get it. Ty Burr, Monica Castillo, Joyce Cole-Haywick, thank you all.
Thank you.